All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the information session for the upcoming cohort of Nichols Humanitarian Fund Scholars. This is the application process for the summer 2026 cohort, which happens to be the 20th anniversary of the Nichols Humanitarian Fund. So this is going to be a very special cohort to us and to Mr. and Mrs. Nichols, our generous donors. Every session is very important to us. This one marks a milestone in the university's history, and we are so excited to celebrate 20 years of the Nichols Humanitarian Fund this year. I'm going to show a brief presentation about the fund. My name is Carolyn Roberts. I'm the Senior Director of Immersion Vanderbilt. If you have any sort of questions or if you have thoughts after this about either the Nichols Humanitarian Fund or Immersion Vanderbilt, you can always reach out directly to me. But you also could start with the rest of the office. And my colleagues on the call are going to help with dropping some links into chat while we go. But I know that I see Bailey Berry and Cheyenne Naramore and Alyssa West on the call. I don't know if any of the other staff have made it on, but we are so excited that you're here and we're all available to answer questions anytime. All right, I'm going to see. You should be seeing the slideshow right now. I see a nod, so good. Great, great, great. Okay, so the Nichols Humanitarian Fund. We are going to talk about these topics. We're going to go through what the fund is, what kind of experiences are supported, how you can apply when your applications are due, some of the benefits, some of the requirements, and then we'll go through some FAQs. I'll remind you of some key dates, and then I will open it up for questions. Nichols Humanitarian Fund provides students with a unique opportunity to develop your own service project. So you get the chance to pick any place in the world where Vanderbilt will sponsor travel to do any kind of humanitarian work that you would find meaningful. The requirement is a minimum of 2 weeks over the summer. Everything else is up to you. We've had students do work on community engagement, on beautification projects. We had a person who lived in an island off the coast of Greece working on a cat colony. We've had students explore the Great Barrier Reef. So there doesn't have to actually be a human-to-human interaction. Anything you do in the world that has some kind of humanitarian bent to it will benefit other humans. And the goal of this fund through Mr. and Mrs. Nichols is for us to go out into the world representing Vanderbilt University and doing great things that help our world be a better place. You have to submit your application on time in order to be considered for funding. You must submit an application for an experience that lasts a minimum of 2 weeks over the summer. Unfortunately, this means you cannot compete for the VUSRP application as well. If you accept Nichols, you probably cannot do any of the other long-time summer on-campus research projects either. But we don't necessarily make the rules for those others, but like DSI or Views or something that requires that 10 weeks of research probably will conflict with Nichols. There are some other funding guidelines. We really suggest you go to our website to view the other guidelines for Nichols. Now, your project can take place anywhere in the world. It could go right here in Nashville. It could go to your hometown. It could go anywhere in the world. If you wanted a reason to go to a different continent, then the Nichols Humanitarian Fund is a great way to go see another place and have a positive impact on another community. A complete application will be due no later than 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, January 14th, and then awards will be made by early March. I can't be more specific than that, but we'll find out the awards as quickly as we can to make sure that you can set your timeline. You can buy plane tickets if needed. You can pay registration, however you need to fund your project. We'll try to get the dollars into your bank account as soon as possible. Your program can be self-created. It can be something that you design entirely on your own. It can be part of another program. So you can think very broadly, or you can think about something that might have a cohort already designed, whether it's through a third-party provider or part of a student org. We support all kinds of humanitarian work over the summer. If you accept the award, then you will submit 2 check-in reports and a final report by the due dates that we provide to you. There will be a meet and greet in April and then a service learning showcase in October that you're also required to attend. If for some reason you can't attend one of those, and you would just have to let us know in advance with a valid reason. A valid reason could be something like you'll be studying abroad, so you won't be on campus, or it conflicts with class time. But we expect everyone to follow through on the program requirements if you do accept the funding. You have to be enrolled in a Vanderbilt undergraduate degree program when you apply and when you receive the award. And then, like all student financial aid, you have to meet funding eligibility requirements. You must be able to engage in a minimum of 2 full weeks of humanitarian work over the summer. We've had students try to break this up into weekend work in the past, or to separate the weeks with something else in between, and it simply doesn't work. So what we are looking for is at least 2 weeks of full-time engagement, and those weeks are literally 10 days that are consecutive days. So try to block off that minimum amount of time over the summer to design something. And you should be a rising junior or senior. We will consider applications from rising sophomores, but we do give priority to rising juniors and seniors. Why would you want to do this? Why in the world would you want to dedicate 2 weeks of your summer to humanitarian work? Well, since you're sitting on this call, I imagine it's because you already know the innate benefits of dedicating your time and your talents to the benefit of others. In addition to that, when it comes to your degree requirement, you can use your Nichols humanitarian experience as the experiential portion of Immersion Vanderbilt, and it could potentially lead to the culminating project requirement also. You get an opportunity to present your work at the Service Learning Showcase. You get experience presenting. You get the benefit of being part of the cohort of Nichols Humanitarian Fund participants. You get to know Mr. and Mrs. Nichols. You get to know all of us in the immersion office. And you also would be able to confer a benefit to others. As I mentioned before, since you're on this call, you already have that imprinted on your hearts, and you would be able to pick anything that matters so much to you. And then we can make sure that you get there, and we would celebrate your accomplishments and share the good work that is being done by Vanderbilt students around the world. So how could this fit for Immersion Vanderbilt? If you're doing 2 weeks of an experience and you do the work ahead of time to research your program or research what you're planning to do and the location where you're going, and then you are there doing something that's an intense experience, that would satisfy the experiential requirement for Immersion Vanderbilt, especially if you're incorporating some kind of classroom learning that you did before and or after the experience. That would just enrich and deepen the entire experience for you. If you want to make this into your Immersion Vanderbilt culminating project, you should speak with a faculty member at Vanderbilt as soon as possible. It's really helpful if they know about the kind of experience you're doing before you go. They can help you with that background research that you might do before you go. They can help maybe if they've got connections in the location where you're going. They can help make the most out of the time that you would be undertaking your experience. And then when you come back, they can help you craft a culminating project that would be really evocative of what you did and a great demonstration of the learning that happened through your Nichols Humanitarian Fund supported experience. Make an advising appointment with someone in the office to talk about Immersion Vanderbilt. Visit our website, and by all means ask questions at the end of this presentation. Okay, so again, the application is due no later than 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday, January 14th. We will not accept late applications. We have to quickly turn these around and get them out to the reviewers. So please, please don't miss this deadline. Don't wait until the 14th to submit your application. It must be a complete application. It's okay if you haven't already gotten into the program, or if you're a little bit fuzzy on a couple of details for your project that you want to propose. That's okay, but make sure that you at least have the majority of the work determined before you go. Before you submit your application. And a review committee will score on the goals and the intended outcomes. Be as specific as possible. How will the work that you're proposing confer a benefit on a community, a location, any kind of recipient? And what does that look like? Be very clear in your expenses as well. You probably want to break down, show your math a little bit. If you're asking for meals to be covered, then how many days, how much is your projected amount per meal, or what do you think your plane tickets are going to cost? You can attach a screenshot, but make sure that you're as clear and detailed as possible. Whether there's a sufficient explanation of what you're planning to do or the appropriateness of what you're doing or how prepared you are to do something will be factored into the way that your application is scored. If you are trying to do something that's very intensely involved with, say, human-to-human interaction, and you don't have any experience with that, that probably will impact your score. So think about something that is going to confer a benefit that is also something you're prepared to undertake when you're looking for the kind of experience you want to do over the summer. Now keep this in mind. If you are a merit stipend recipient or you received Crush or Audi, we can only give up to $1,500 of Nichols Humanitarian Fund for you, and you will be expected to use your merit stipend or your Crush or Audi stipend before you can receive Nichols Fund. What this means is you can still be awarded a spot as a member of the cohort, but the funding would come from your merit stipend or your Crush or Audi first. And then if there was any left over to cover the cost, then you could get up to $1,500. And if you already used that stipend up entirely, then you could still get a maximum of $1,500 from Nichols Humanitarian Fund. So here we're going to go over some common frequently asked questions. We already know, we've talked about, immersion Vanderbilt can be satisfied through the Nichols Humanitarian Fund, and the experienced mentor could be any faculty or staff person at Vanderbilt. If you're looking for someone to oversee the culminating project piece, you might want to think about who you already know or whose work is sort of central to the work that you're doing. And then you'll want to speak with them early. Your first conversation may not even be about them overseeing your culminating project, but maybe just showing an interest in what they do and learning a little bit more about the location where you're going or the type of humanitarian work that you want to do will build an organic relationship with them. And it'll become clear if this is the right person to oversee the culminating project for you as well. Big question that we get is about enrolling in summer school. As long as the session doesn't overlap with your Nichols Humanitarian Fund experience, then yes, there's plenty of time in the summer to also have an internship or to engage in research, though not BUSRP, or to take summer classes. So there's lots of opportunity to do other things because Nichols is a minimum of 2 weeks, but there's not really a maximum. If you're already engaged in something that would be a great humanitarian project over the summer, then absolutely you can continue that with Nichols Humanitarian support. Group proposals are accepted. We love group proposals, but please keep this in mind. Group proposals are scored still on an individual basis. So even if two students submit identical applications, one student may get funded and another may not. Nichols Humanitarian Fund does have a need-based component to it. So students with different types of financial need might get different amounts of funding based on how their application is scored and what their financial need is. So please do not make your plans contingent on somebody else certainly getting funding. Please also do not feel like you somehow were overlooked or something was not fair if one person in a group gets funding and another person gets none or a different amount of funding. These are made on an individual basis. We will work with you to help figure it out, but I want you to know up front, to be as transparent as possible, that you might not see the same kind of award even if you're submitting identical applications. If you are awarded and you are a part of the Nichols Humanitarian Fund cohort and what you are planning to do is canceled or doesn't happen, you can't make it, then I will work with you personally to find something else that's commensurate that would get funded, or you may just return the funds and it's just a wash, and that's okay. But we definitely want to make sure that you are doing something that's got a humanitarian focus to it with the awarded amount. We will do everything we can to make that happen. So returning the funds is a last resort. What we really want to do is pivot and move in a different direction. that will require very good communication from you. And so we would need to know back and forth. Before you go, you are expected to turn in an itinerary. We want your flight information at least 2 weeks before your travel. If you can't provide any of those things, then we're going to have a conversation about what you're doing with your fund and how you are engaging in humanitarian work. But we are here to support you and to make sure that there is something fantastic that you are able to accomplish this summer. If the Department of State advisory level changes, so for no fault of your own, things happen. Sometimes a location that was open before is now closed. We will have to look at justifiable reasons to make a change. And again, just like before, we'll pivot. We can be very flexible and think about different opportunities that are available to you. Okay, so can't say we never told you. The application deadline is Wednesday, January 14th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. No late applications will be accepted. None. And then awards will be announced via your Vanderbilt email by early March. So make sure you're reading your emails. If you ever see anything from Immersion, I highly recommend reading your email from us. But you definitely want to check your email in March because you will have a window of time to accept that award. If you don't accept it by the deadline, then we'll move on and award to somebody else. So make sure you're checking. And then here are some resources. The application is available through our Vanderbilt website. You can open up and read it before you submit your application. All right, that is it for the presentation. I'm going to look back at the chat and see. Bailey, thanks so much for dropping those links into the chat. I don't see any questions so far. Oh, here we go. I've got a question that asks, what do we need to submit for the application? Please go on the InfoReady application and take a look, but there are questions you'll need to answer about your proposed project. And then also you'll need to submit a budget sheet that shows what kind of expenses you'll need. And if you think about the type of expenses that you could put on that, there will be guidance on the expense sheet itself, but you should think about things that are directly tied to the experience. So we can cover the cost of flights, lodging, ground transportation, food, but there are limits to things that we'll purchase like equipment or clothing. You'd have to show a direct line between what you're doing and why you would need something that's very personal rather than just a cost of the experience. But you can put it on there and justify it. If you're going to a location where you need to have a mosquito net, then you can put that on there and explain to us why, and that makes sense. And what level of a travel advisory is not allowed? We use the Office of Global Safety to give us guidance. So every single person who's traveling outside of the United States will fill out the VTRAC form in advance in order to go. We will not release the funds to you if you have not submitted that VTRAC form and received permission to go to any country with a travel advisory of a 3 or higher. So please make sure that you are looking at the Department of State website to make sure that where you're going is allowable. If you want to go someplace that's a level 3 or 4, but you could complete the same work in a place that is like a level 1 or 2, then you might want to think about pivoting. If the location that you want to go must be done and it's a 3 or 4 and you absolutely insist that that's the center of your goal, then you can still apply to go there, but it'll go through the review through the Office of Global Safety using the VTRAC form. Another question I have is if you accept Global Summer Fellows funding, which supports Maymester, can you apply for Nichols Humanitarian Fund? Unfortunately not. The rules for Immersion Vanderbilt are that you get 1 funded experience per session. So if you accepted GSF for Maymester, that would be your funding for the summer. In addition, you can only receive experience funding 1 time per year. You can receive the experience funding every year, so you get 4 opportunities for an experience funding disbursement. But if you accept a Global Summer Fellows disbursement for Maymester, then you are no longer eligible to receive Nichols Humanitarian Fund. And vice versa, if you accept Nichols, then you won't be able to accept another summer award using immersion funding from us. Is it possible to have your service project be self-run, or does it have to be part of a pre-existing program? Oh, you can totally design your own project. We've had a lot of students do that, or they'll find a location, say like an animal clinic or a clinic that treats some kind of illness in another country, and they'll go and they'll join with them. But you can definitely design something on your own. Say there's a beautification project you'd love to undertake in your hometown, then you could do that all on your own. But remember, the fund is designed to support your cost of living while you're doing whatever the experience is. So the goal is to cover your direct costs associated with the experience, not necessarily to purchase things for a location. However, if that's the center of what you're hoping to do, then you could explain that in your application, and it will be taken into consideration. If someone who's participating in Maymester or any experience before still apply for this? So remember, with Immersion Vanderbilt dollars, there is a maximum award of $10,000. If you have already received more than $10,000 from Immersion Vanderbilt, then you're no longer eligible to receive the the Nichols Humanitarian Fund. So we unfortunately cannot give you any more funding if you did receive more than $10,000 for Global Summer Fellows. We're just not able to give any more funding than that. But if you haven't received $10,000 already, then you can apply for Nichols up to the amount that you still have remaining. Is preference given to students who intend to use this opportunity for a full Vanderbilt immersion as their culminating project? Oh, and you're welcome. I'm happy to offer this session. So no, there's no preference if this is a full immersion Vanderbilt, if it will lead to your project. Part of the design of immersion is that we don't lock you in. So I really try not to say, if you get this funding, then it must be your project. And there might be instances where that does happen. This is not one of them. We hope that you can turn this into your culminating project, because what you're doing is so meaningful through Nichols Humanitarian Fund. And you're doing something that's so great that to give that a title and to put that on your transcript and to show everybody that this is what you did while you were a Vanderbilt undergraduate student is an incredible thing to show the world. However, you have the option. It's completely up to you. All of you are the architects of your immersion Vanderbilt. So don't feel locked in with anything unless it explicitly says that you must use this for your immersion. If you receive this funding, then you will always have the option. Can we apply for immersion funding for fall after the summer? You sure can. So if you accept this funding, then that would be your fund for this year. So if you've already received immersion experience funding this year, so July 1 until like now, then you can't get any funding from us for this experience. However, if you want to apply for something after this, you will be able to apply to receive funding after July 1st. So June 15th would be the next deadline for you to apply for funding for the next academic year. But remember, you've got that one limit on your experience funding for the year. You also get one opportunity. So remember, 4 experience opportunities. You get one funding opportunity for a culminating project. So we want to see that actually turn into a culminating project. If you're getting that funding for a project, then you could apply for that also. So let's say you are doing your Nichols Humanitarian Fund service trip in the end of May, and you want to wrap that up and turn that into your project to submit and have approved in early June, even though most faculty don't work over the summer. But let's just use this hypothetical, right? Then you could also apply for project funding if what you needed to do for your project required some form of materials. That would be the only option that you could have a second fund in this same academic year. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I just said a lot of words in kind of a circular way. So if you need me to come back around to that, then let me know. But you also all must attend a funding workshop in order to apply for this. So if you have not attended a funding workshop yet, those dates are listed on our website. You can see them in Anchor Link, but you've got the link to it through the funding page on our website. Go to that funding session, and Alyssa or Colby will tell you all about funding and all the things that you need to know in addition to what I've already told you. But it's a lot of little things to remember. So just ask all the questions and make sure you understand. And before you accept an award, make sure that you know what you are, what you're potentially giving up as far as like future awards are concerned. You guys are asking some great questions. I'm loving this. All right. Is Vanderbilt Global Brigades an acceptable use of the funds? So I have heard of this before, and as long as you can turn it into 2 weeks, so say Global Brigades itself isn't 2 weeks, but if there's another thing you can attach to it, then yes, that would be fine to use for Nichols Humanitarian Fund purposes. But you've got to have a minimum of 2 weeks. So think about how you could turn that into a 2 week experience. And if not, then you could do Global Brigades, and then you could do something else. It's kind of up to you. But if you want to talk through that more, then by all means, set an appointment. Let us know. Happy to sit down and talk with you. Another question, can Crusher Audi scholars use their funding alongside the NHF 1500 for 2 different projects in the summer, or do they have to be the same project in one summer? So I'm going to say this, this question could go in 100 different directions. This is going to be a hard one to answer in sort of like a hypothetical sense. I probably would need to know what you were talking about. So maybe let's set an advising appointment and talk about what you have in mind, because this one could be like, well, maybe if I imagined it this way, but if I imagined it this other way, then no, or yes, or something. So my recommendation for this one is to set an appointment. Let's talk about what you want to do. And I actually have time this afternoon. If anybody wants to meet for a little bit this afternoon, you can just shoot me an email and I'll set an advising appointment, or we'll set advising sessions for coming back in January. Then you'll be able to make an appointment for that first week back. And actually we'll be back on January 2nd. So you could set an appointment then. But if you want to meet with me today, then my email address is just my name with a dot in between it at vanderbilt.edu. Let's see. But don't forget those funding workshops. If you haven't gone to a funding workshop, I'm telling you, you guys, you got to go anyway. We won't review your application if you haven't gone. So make sure you go to that, and that'll probably answer some of your questions too. But also happy to answer Nichols specific questions. Can you apply for the Summer Keegan at the same time? You can. Summer Keegan and immersion funding do not offset each other. So it's like a completely different area. So you can. Hypothetically, yes, there would be nothing that would prevent you from doing that. Let's see. From my understanding, we can only be awarded 1 grant per fiscal year. Does this include the summer experience from a merit stipend? It does, and you're welcome for the session. Yes. So if you get your merit stipend, remember, guys, we're talking about those as first funds. So if you're doing something over the summer and you have Crusher Audi or you have one of the merit stipends, before you can accept any funding from us, except VUSRP, which is treated very differently, but before you can accept any funding from us, you'll have to use up your summer stipend. That's what they're intended to do. So if you do use up your stipend, say you've used part of it and you need to use the rest of it this summer, then you could come up with something that would pay using the rest of your stipend. And one of the things that we've decided to make allowable is if you want to be in the Nichols fund, you could use up the rest of your stipend and get topped off with Nichols dollars. We want you out there in the world doing great humanitarian work. So this is one way to show that commitment, is that you could use the rest of your stipend and top it off with Nichols dollars. Once you get approved, how flexible if you need to change dates? Yeah. So, man, last year with all the things happening at the federal level, we had a lot of changes. And if you talk to any of the students that were in the previous cohort, as I'm the person you primarily work with on it, I did everything I could to help salvage summer experiences. And we changed dates, we changed locations. The one thing I ask of you is to communicate with me to the extent that it feels like you are over communicating, because there will be so many of you and just one of me. So I do ask that that if you do need to make changes, that we are in communication right away, and we're looking at what that change will look like and what will happen. What we don't do is change award amounts. So really important to know, if you are going to change what you're doing, we don't change the award amounts. So you can't get more money. We also are not going to go through and like reduce the award unless it's like significant. Like if you're going from 2000 to like you only need 500, then probably we could take that money and do something really good with it, right? But if you could find something that's sort of commensurate along the same lines as what you got awarded to do, then I'll work with you on that. We do have a little review committee that will have your new application go through them, and they'll tell us that they think it's a good project. So there is a lot of accountability in that, but I need you communicating with me if that happens. But we understand life happens. We ran immersion through a pandemic. We learned flexibility, and we want to work with you. We want you out there in the world doing great things. Let's see. Oh, thank you for posting the funding workshop dates. Um, so ask for a little bit more detail about how this works for students with Crusher Audi and additional funding through Nichols. How do students request a Nichols fund after spending their CA funds? Yeah, so again, if you have this, I want you to know, we know that you have this. We know how much is still remaining of your summer stipend. So if you've used part of it, we know what your balance is. And what we'll do is apply that to your Nichols award. So say you have your full 6,000 left and you only ask for 3,000 through Nichols, then your entire award would come out of your summer stipend, and then you'd still have $3,000 remaining. But say you already used 4,500 and you only have 1,500 remaining in your summer stipend, then the first 1,500 would come off your summer stipend, and then immersion, and then Nichols would give you 1,500, which is the max you could get from them. So they just kind of offset. But again, attend a funding workshop, and then if you've got specific questions about how this works, then come on through. I'll set some appointments up, and you guys can come in and talk about this as you need to once you've got a little bit more of an idea of what kind of project you want and what kind of funding you'll need. Can you apply for Nichols and Keegan? Yes. And an example of someone's service project in the past. Okay. So we have online on the Nichols Humanitarian Fund page, we do something with those reflections. Remember, I said if you accept this award, then there are some things you have to do. You have to do 2 check-ins over the summer, and you have to give us a reflection report. We create reflection booklets off of what students have done over the summer, and they are all posted on the Nichols Humanitarian Fund website. So you can go and read what students did in the past. But we have seen so many tremendous things. Actually, one of the pictures on the slideshow is one of your colleagues was here in Nashville, and his project actually didn't work. The first iteration of it didn't work out. And what he ended up doing, pivoting and changing, is he bought a bunch of wheelchairs and passed them out to people who are unhomed in Nashville and helped them with their mobility needs. So because what worked out initially didn't, what he applied for initially didn't work, he was able to pivot and create something for someone. This is an example of us purchasing equipment rather than paying for living costs because the need changed based on the student's circumstances. But what he did was tremendous. And it actually is going into what he's planning to do after he graduates for work. So just a really life-changing thing. We have students that have helped with backpack stuffing for back to school for students. For elementary and middle school age students. There are students who have gone overseas. I always draw a blank when somebody says, like, what's your favorite? I'm like, I can't remember. But the cat colony one is the one that always stands out to me. They were spaying and neutering these cats on a cat colony. So take a look at those and see. I mean, there's so many. And if you're looking for a place, if you need help finding a location, you want to make sure that it's a safe place or that it will still be there after you pay the registration fee, check with us. We can do a quick run and see if a student has been there before. I'm happy to help you find the right thing. Once we get back from school, you still have like 10 days basically to get that application in, so we can work on that. I want to help you find good locations. And full disclosure, I do not review the applications or decide the funding awards, so you can talk to me. So, and it won't be any sort of conflict. Will this summer count with next year's spring? I'm going to make an assumption here and say you're thinking about funding. So if you apply for Nichols Humanitarian Fund, it won't affect whether or not you're able to apply for funding for next year. July 1st, everything resets. So whatever you get this year is done, then it resets, you can apply again, but the dollar amount carries with you. So keep in mind the $10,000 limit for immersion funding. This does get folded into that. Funding eligibility question. So Used the full summer stipend last summer, still eligible to apply for Nichols Fund this year? Yes, up to $1,500, as long as you haven't gone over the 10,000. So if you used your summer stipend up, that means $6,000 has been used. You can only get $1,500 from Nichols now. Does our budget have to include the cost for flights, or can we use our own money out of pocket? Sure, you can use your own money out of pocket if you'd rather allocate the funds to a different thing, or if you really don't need the funding. I'll say this is just sort of like a more of a philosophical rather than a rule. If you don't need the funds, then don't ask for the funds, and that way we can take that and give it to more students. So if you have a way of paying for something and what you really need is just a certain amount, say your total trip is 2,000, and in order to make it happen, you only need 750 from us. Then ask for 750, because we can take the rest of the funding and spread this out, and more good things can happen around the world. So if you don't need it, then don't ask for it, and we can do more good work with the donor funds that we have. But if you need the funding, on the converse of that, if you need it, then ask for it. I had a student say to me one time in an advising session that he didn't want to ask for funding because he thought it might seem selfish. And I want you to know that the donors are giving us these dollars to give to you so you can go do these things. There's nothing selfish about asking for the money you need to go do your experiences and your projects. So if you do need that little bit of encouragement, then I'm encouraging you to ask for the money so that you can go and do these really cool things while you're here. It's meaningful to us. It's meaningful to the donors. So that's what it's intended for. Our goal is to get to $0 every year. We want to give out every dollar the donors give us so that you can go do cool things and meaningful things and things that will change your life and the lives of others. Thank you for posting the cohort reflection reports, Bailey. Can projects be similar to past Nichols Humanitarian Fund projects, or we judge based off of uniqueness? Nope, nope, nope. No uniqueness here. You can go and continue the great work that other students did before. This is not looking for novel work. This is looking for impact. So what the direct impact is to a community or to a location is what is going to be assessed on the applications. But you can 100% go and read what somebody else did and say, I want to do exactly that and put it in. And that would be great. As long as it's good work, then we want you out there doing it. And how many scholars will this Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a little unknown, but we don't plan on having as large of a cohort as we had last year. Last year, I think we awarded 54 students, and that was significantly larger than past cohorts. I plan to bring this one down a little bit so we can hopefully give more meaningful awards, and the support that we provide will be also a little bit more robust. But it all depends on exactly how much we have in the fund balance and how much money students ask for. So if students ask for a lot of money, then fewer students, right? Even though we give partial awards. So you may not get the full amount that you request. But if we have students asking for just small little bits, everyone's staying in the US this summer and we don't have international flights or something, then it might be more students. We don't really have a set amount. But I don't think we'll be awarding as many students as we did last year. All right, so here's another. I used the 6,000 chancellor stipend back when I was a first year. Now I'm a senior, is the max 1,500. So the max from Nichols is $1,500. Yes, that's the max amount. And Alyssa, if you are listening and you want to add anything to any of the funding questions now, then that's great. But I think that we could also say we could provide more guidance. We actually will have a record of every student that's on this call. We can provide a little bit more guidance to these questions also when it comes out, so you've got those. But yes, you're limited to that amount from Nichols for this summer. Yeah, and then let me see. Something just jumped on this. Okay. I think I got through all the questions. I feel like an auctioneer. Was I talking too fast, or was everything okay? Do we have other questions? No other questions? I'm so delighted with how many of you showed up. I hope that you're having a wonderful break. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.